Hi kids, welcome to our day 10. For our day 10, it's about God to the rescue from Exodus chapter 3 to 13. Joseph and his brother grew old and died, but their children's children stayed on in Egypt. They were become the very large family. Later on, a new king began to rule, but this Pharaoh didn't remember Joseph, and he didn't like God's people. He made them into slaves and beat them and made them work harder and harder. God's people cried out to God to rescue them, and God heard them. He remembered his promise to Abraham that he would look after his people. He would find a way to set them free. One day, Moses was looking after sheep when something caught his eye. A bush was behaving very oddly. It was flickering with flames, but its leaves weren't burning up. He took a closer look. Moses! Boomed a big voice. Moses looked back. The bush was talking to him. I have heard my people's cry, God said. I have seen their tears, so I have come down to rescue them. Go to Pharaoh and tell him to let my people go free. Moses was afraid, but God said, I will be with you. So Moses went to Pharaoh. Pharaoh, Moses began. God says, God, said the Pharaoh. I never heard of him. Moses kept going. God says, let his people go free. Why should I? Pharaoh said. I don't want. I won't. So he didn't. So God gave Pharaoh 10 warnings called plagues. First, God turned the river Nile into blood, so no one could drink the water. But still, the Pharaoh wouldn't let them go. So God made frogs come hopping and leaping and jumping in your bed, frogs, in your head, frogs, in your soup, frogs, all over, everywhere, frogs. Make them go away, Pharaoh screamed. Then your people can go. So God took the frogs away. But the Pharaoh changed his mind. You won't go, he said. Then God sent zillion of goats, but still Pharaoh said, No. So then God sent a swarm of flies, flies buzzing in your eyes, flies, and after that, sickness and horrible boils, and huge hailstone and storm of locusts. Then darkness when it would have been day until it seems that the whole world, creation and everything was coming undone, failing back into darkness and emptiness and nothingness. But each time Pharaoh said, Make it stop and then I'll let them go. And each time when God made it stop, Pharaoh changes his mind and said, "Actually, no, you can't go." Finally, Moses warned Pharaoh, "Obey God, or he will have to send the worst thing of all." Pharaoh just laughed. So God said, "The eldest boy in each family of Egypt must die. But my people be safe." God told his people to take the best lamb, to kill it, and put some of its blood on their front doors. When God passed over your house, Moses explained, God see the blood and know that the lamb died instead of you. That night, it was just as God had said. Suddenly, piercing the darkness, echoing down the corridors of the palace, came a blood-curdling scream. Pharaoh's oldest son had died. At last, Pharaoh did what God said. "Get out!" Pharaoh shouted. "Just go!" And so that very night, Moses and God's people fled out of Egypt. And out of slavery, they were free at last. God's people always remember this great rescue and called it Passover. But an even greater rescue was coming. Many years later, God was going to do it again. He was going to come down once more to rescue his people. But this time, God was going to set them free forever and ever. Okay, kids, so our story for today is about a great rescue of God's people, and it is Moses and the great escape from Egypt. In our story, we can see that God is really doing what He promised from Abraham, that He will save His people. And we see how he was very consistent and very much hearing each and every prayer to save his people. Thank you, kids, and I hope you can do a beautiful and magnificent artwork for today, and see you again tomorrow.